Gaudete in Domino Semper is the theme of this Sunday, the Glad Sunday, Rejoicing Sunday. And that is why in Prophet Isaiah we have the opening verse, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me. Why God anointed that person, the messenger, to proclaim the good news to the oppressed, liberation to the captives, release to the prisoners, to bind up those who are broken-hearted, and to proclaim the year of the Lord. Yes, dear friends, when we think about the proclamation of the year of the Lord, the release, freedom, binding up the broken-hearted, we all of us participate in such situations. We all of us have pains and sorrows. We are imprisoned sometimes. We are perhaps sad. We are feeling perhaps insecure in our lives due to old age, sickness. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, one of our Carmelite nuns was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And it was in 1970. And she was feeling so insecure and sad. Some of the Carmelite priests, because she is the one who inspired me to become a Carmelite priest, we all gathered around her, said, "Sister, God has different plans to all of us. Sometimes doctors say something and God says something else. It could be that you live a long life. We never know. Doctors are very often wrong, but God cannot be wrong." And from that time onwards, she was, trying her best to live a happy life. And she resorted to naturopathic medicines. And when she died, it was from 1970. She died this year in the month of June. She lived 17 years. That is what we call liberation and freedom. And some of the nuns from that particular convent were saying, because sometimes they did not like her. And whenever I used to visit, they were saying, "Father, she had to die 10, 15 years ago. She's still there." In some way, telling that this particular nun continues to live. That is the miracle. That is the liberation. That is the freedom. That is the year of the Lord that Isaiah proclaimed in the desert to those people who are feeling out of place, those people who are feeling imprisoned. And that is the good news. And then Prophet Isaiah continues to say, "I will rejoice in the Lord. My soul glorifies the Lord." And this is connected with our Mother Mary. When she received the glad news from Angel Gabriel, who came and told, "You will conceive and bear a son," for Mother Mary, it was not a glad news. It was not so easy to accept that news. But then she asked a question, "How come and how it will happen, because I do not know a man?" The angel Gabriel answered, "Well, what will be conceived in your womb will be by the Holy Spirit. Power of the Most High will overshadow you." So she continues to sing that Magnificat. And that is the part of this particular hymn we have in the first reading. And then the prophet continues to say that the people of Israel will be decked with garland, like the bridegroom wearing a garland, and the bride wearing the jewels on herself. She will be decked. That means more and more gladness and joy will be poured on the people of Israel, like the robe of salvation and the clothing of righteousness will be put on Israel. And that's what happened actually when they were brought back from the land of Babylon to their promised land. God gave them abundance of joy, happiness. And that's why it is never late for God to bring us back to rejoicing and gladness. Now St. Paul, in the second reading, his letter to the Thessalonians, gives us three important points for our reflection. And these three important points are this: continue to rejoice, pray unceasingly, and give thanks all the time. We can do all that. Rejoice, pray, and give thanks. Can we do it in our daily life, dear friends? One of the things that comes to my mind is, very often we, people of faith, we who are supposed to be happiest people, because of our scrupulosities and our doubting nature towards God, we seem to be unhappy all the time. We tell to ourselves, so why I am unhappy in spite of my belief in the Lord? Sometimes people are sad. These days I have been going to hear confessions in different churches. What is the complaint? People come and say, oh Father, I am doing the same thing over and over again. I confess and I confess and I confess. I fall in the same mistake. Then I tell them, well, stop confessing. If you are in the habit of going every week, do not trouble the priest every week. You confess once a month. Go and confess once in 6 months. Go and confess at least once a year. That is what the Catholic Church says. But then I tell you, continue to rejoice. Continue to pray. In prayer we never make a mistake. What is prayer? In touch with God. Sometimes sick people come and ask me, Father, I have made a good confession. But now, when I am very sick, about to die, if I do not get a priest, what will happen? Nothing will happen. What will happen? Nothing. Because in touch with God, in prayer. Now just imagine, we continue our relationship with all our relatives and friends all over the world. Don't you think so? Now during this Christmas, we all send Christmas cards and messages. Someone will be in Australia, in Germany, in London, or in Africa, or in Asia, or in India. But then because you are far away, do you lose their company? They are your family members. Because you keep in touch. You keep in contact with them. That is prayer. Now no matter what happens in our lives, if we continue to pray, rejoice, we are in the safe hands of God. Remember that. By praying, we do not lose touch with God. God will save us. He knows how to save us. And that is what St. Paul says. Rejoice. We need to rejoice. As religious people, as faith-filled people, we should never be sad. Because God has so many ways of filling us with joy, provided we are in touch with God with prayer. And then thanksgiving. Why should I thank the Lord? Sometimes a thought may come to my mind. Why should I thank the Lord? Because I am poorer than others. I am less fortunate than others. But then, have you compared your life with those millions who are worse than you? We never think of that. We always compare our life with those people who are better than me. I never compare, or that thought does not come to my mind. I never compare my life with those people who are poorer than, who are more miserable than me. There are millions out there in the world who are suffering more than me. That is why St. Paul says, thank God always. And then he adds, with all these things that we have to prepare ourselves, our mind, body and spirit for the day of the Lord. So if we do that, rejoicing, praying and thanksgiving, we will prepare ourselves, body, mind and spirit for the day of the Lord. Let us come to the gospel passage. Here we have a great personality, and that's why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11 verse 11, there is no greater person born of a woman than John the Baptist. He is the greatest among the people born of women. But the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than him. What is the meaning of this? Jesus had wonderful words for John the Baptist. He was in the wilderness. Now, historically speaking, during the time of Jesus and before, there were 5 groups or 5 types of people who were in some way connected with Jewish religion. First group is the Sadducees. They were in the temple, around the temple. They were practically the managers of the temple. They were friends of Herod the Tetrarch, and therefore Herodians and Sadducees were together. And they had a wonderful connection with Rome. Caesar Augustus. And therefore, whatever revenues they used to get in the temple, a part of it will go to Caesar Augustus. Consequently, the Sadducees were managing all temple affairs. People did not like them. There was another group, Pharisees. Pharisees were very keen on keeping the law of Moses. What was their intention? Their intention was to show they were religious people. And therefore, what they were doing? They were going out with long robes, and they wanted to show that they were really close to God. They used to fast and disfigure their face, telling to people that they were fasting. They were praying in public places to show to people they were praying. And they were giving alms and trumpeting that they were giving alms. And that's why Jesus said, when you give alms, what your right hand does, your left hand should not know. You know, all these people, Pharisees, therefore Jesus was continuously targeting the Pharisees because they were showing their religion outside. But then people did not like them too. There were third kind of people were called Essenes. You know, these separated from Pharisees and scribes and other groups, and they did not have anything to do with the temple. They went to the desert and they lived in caves. And that is why the Qumran caves, if you go near Dead Sea in Israel, you will find these Qumran caves, where long back in 1946 to 1951-52, they excavated 11 big caves of Qumran and found lot of fragments and scrolls by these Essenes. What they were doing, their only task was to be faithful to the law of Moses. They were memorizing the law, they were rewriting the law, they were copying in papyrus all those words of the Lord. They were keeping them safe in earthen vessels, jars. And that's why two Bedouin boys, when they were grazing their sheep, they found these jars discovered, and that was a huge treasure trove for the Israelites to see that their law that was written long back, 3 centuries BC, it was a great treasure for the Israelites, and someone bought them for 2.5 million and carried them to Israel. Now they are found in the famous museums of Israelites. Now when we think about the Essenes, I am connecting here John the Baptist with the Essenes, because John the Baptist was not in the temple preaching and teaching. He was in the wilderness. The Essenes community lived in the wilderness, in the Qumran caves. One of the practices they had was very often wash themselves or re-baptize themselves for the forgiveness of sins. So they would dip themselves in water. If they committed any mistake or sin, they would be baptized, not once, over and over again. And that's why they had this purification system or liturgical celebration of purification in their community. Now John the Baptist was in the wilderness baptizing people with water. Now while the Pharisees, the Levites and the Jewish people came to John the Baptist, some of them were curious, especially the Pharisees were curious. John the Baptist was realizing his ministry in the wilderness. Why not in the temple? So they asked questions in today's gospel. Who are you? Tell us. Are you the Messiah? Are you a prophet? Are you Elijah? John the Baptist says, no, no, no. Then who are you? John the Baptist answers, I am the voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. So that's all. I am the voice. And I am here to baptize with water. The one who comes after me will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. Now when we look at this particular group of Essenes, some people say it need not be that John the Baptist was from this group. Some reasons give us that John the Baptist was not the member of Essenes group, and especially the Catholic Church holds it very strongly. The reason is, John the Baptist said, the Messiah is among you. The one who is coming after me is greater than me, he is among you. But the Essenes community believed the Messiah would come from among them only, not from the Sadducees, not from the Pharisees, not from other groups, but only from the Essenes community. But John the Baptist said, no, he is among you, he is with you, because so many people gathered around, and he was not a man completely excluded from the society. Even though he was in the wilderness, there were so many people gathered around him. The whole of Jerusalem, the whole of the countryside of Judea came around him to ask questions. Now, the two other groups, I said Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes. The other two groups is one, zealots. They were zealous for the law of the Lord. Very zealous. They would be termed in some way fanatically oriented people. And the last group derived from zealots is called the Sicaries. These Sicaries were dangerous people. These people were carrying a dagger with them. If someone spoke against the religion, they were ready to kill that person with a dagger. So they were so-called fanatic or fundamentalists of the religion. So these were the five groups. Now, let us come to John the Baptist. If you refer Luke chapter 3, here there are other people coming to John the Baptist. Not only the Pharisees, the Levites, and the officials inquiring about why you are doing all these things. But there are other people, ordinary people, they too ask a question. And what was the question? Ordinary people came and asked, what shall we do now? You are saying that Messiah will come. You are preparing the way in the wilderness. You are crying aloud. Now tell us, what should we do? To the ordinary people, John the Baptist gave a simple message. What was the message? If you have two coats, give one coat to the one who does not have. If you have food, share your food with the poor people. That is a message to the poor, ordinary people. And then the second message to the tax collectors. They came and asked, what should we do now? To the tax collectors, John the Baptist said, do not collect which is not due to you. Collect only that is just to be collected. What is not yours, do not collect. Very simple answer. The third type of people were soldiers. These were Jewish soldiers allied with the Roman soldiers. The soldiers had a lot of opportunities to get Roman citizenship, even though they were Jewish soldiers along with the Roman soldiers. They would get Roman citizenship, they would get land grants, and they would get many other facilities from Cezar Augustus. They too were worried, and they too came to John the Baptist and asked, what should we do? And John the Baptist says, well, be kind to people, do not be harsh to people, do not instill fear in them. What is the news to all of us, dear friends? One of the best news we can get today's gospel passage is, unless we are liberated and free, we cannot liberate and free others. So we need to free ourselves. And how that freedom comes? The freedom comes when we trust in the Lord. The first words of the messenger, freedom to the captives, release to the prisoners, binding up the broken-hearted, and proclamation of the year of the Lord is, first it should come to us. I always tell the people, one important thing, we should not be so much closed-minded about our religious beliefs and religious practices. Our religious practice, our religion, our faith experience must liberate us. And how we can liberate ourselves? Trusting that God is merciful and love, and He always looks for the people's good. Why should I always think about the negative aspect of my religion? And what is the negative aspect of my religion? There are some people out there always think about hell. As it were, there is no heaven, no gladness and rejoicing. Always think, oh, I am a weak person, I am so weak, I am into so many things, and therefore God is putting me into hell. As it were, God does not have any other job than removing you and putting you into hell. We need to remove that thought from our mind. Ultimately, what saves us, dear friends? Our connection with God. Our belief in God. our belief that God is there to save us, to put a robe of salvation, a garment of righteousness. It is not to punish us. You know, Jesus' beautiful parables tell us the same story. The prodigal son, the event of the Samaritan woman, or the tax collector Zacchaeus or Levi, all these beautiful examples and parables tell us the same story, that God came through Jesus Christ to save us. And that's why John the Baptist says, the one who comes after me is greater than I am, and I am not worthy to stoop down and unthong his sandals. That means humility of John the Baptist in inviting Jesus into our hearts, that he will give us liberation, freedom, happiness and gladness. Therefore, let us prepare ourselves for the festivity of Christmas by this message of assurance from God through his messenger, that the Spirit of the Lord is upon us because he has anointed us to proclaim the good news to the oppressed and the poor, to proclaim release to the captives, freedom to the prisoners, and to proclaim the wonderful year of the Lord. Kindly rise, we prophesy.